Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
I think we all have this deep-seated desire, don't we, to understand the really big truths
Yeah.
about ourselves, about, well, everything.
Absolutely. It's fun.
But what does being well-informed actually mean in that search? Is it just collecting facts? Or is there something more, something that actually changes how you see things?
That's the key question, isn't it? How do we get beyond just surface information to something that genuinely shifts our perspective, something that might lead to real inner peace?
Exactly. And that's really our goal for you today. We're going deep into some foundational Buddhist concepts. Sīla, Samādhi, and Paññā. You probably know them as morality, concentration, and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And our source here is, well, it's quite special. It's a profound teaching from November 3rd, 2497 in the Buddhist era, delivered by a really revered teacher, offering what feels like a timeless path to inner liberation.
Yeah, it's a remarkable text. So we'll be unpacking these concepts, trying to show how they're still incredibly relevant today, practically speaking. And there are some genuinely surprising insights in there about the mind, about liberation, all drawn directly from this specific teaching.
Okay, let's jump in. At the absolute core of this teaching is something we can maybe call the golden chain. It's stated very clearly, Sīla, morality, when it's developed, leads to Samādhi, concentration.
Which brings great fruit and great benefit.
Right. And Samādhi, when developed, leads to Paññā, wisdom.
Which also brings great fruit and great benefit.
And then Paññā, wisdom, when it's fully developed, truly liberates the mind from the āsavas. We'll definitely need to unpack āsavas later.
Definitely. But what's really striking right away is how these three, Sīla, Samādhi, Paññā, aren't just abstract concepts. They map directly onto the main structure of the Buddhist scriptures, the Tripitaka.
Hopefully.
Well, you take the Vinaya Pitaka, that's the section on monastic discipline, about 21,000 Dharma sections or teaching units. The teaching says this is essentially concentrated into Sīla, morality.
Okay. So all those rules and guidelines ultimately point towards cultivating the Sīla.
Exactly. Then you have the Siddhanta Pitaka, the discourses, also around 21,000 Dharma sections. That gets concentrated down into Samādhi, concentration.
Makes sense.
And finally, the Paramattha Pitaka, or Abhidhamma, the higher teachings, that's the largest chunk, 42,000 Dharma sections. Its essence is Paññā, wisdom.
Wow. So Sīla, Samādhi, Paññā are like the condensed essence of the entire Tripitaka.
That's how this teaching presents it. They're the absolute backbone.
Okay, let's dig into Sīla a bit more then. Morality. The teaching mentions the different levels of precepts. 5 for lay people, 8 sometimes, 10 for novices, loads for monks.
Right, the standard framework.
But then it hits you with something really profound, a statement, Satana Sīla Bhikkhave, which means?
Intention is Sīla, monks.
Intention is Sīla. Not just related to it, but is it?
Precisely. And that's, well, it turns the usual understanding on its head a bit. True morality, according to this teaching, isn't just about ticking off boxes, following rules externally. It stems fundamentally from the purity of your inner intention.
So if the intention is pure, the action will naturally be skillful.
That's the idea. It's about the quality of the mind behind the action. Is it wholesome, unwholesome, or just neutral? That's where Sīla truly lies.
That's a huge point. So if Sīla, true morality, comes from this inner intention, this mind, where is this mind? The teaching gets incredibly specific here, doesn't it?
Amazingly so. It pinpoints the location. It says it's the center of the human body where the navel pierces the back and a tight string runs from right to left.
Like coordinates inside the body.
Exactly. Meeting exactly in the middle, not too high or too low, not too far forward or back.
And that specific point is where everything happens.
According to this teaching, yes. Seeing, remembering, thinking, knowing, it all converges there. It's also identified as the place of birth, death, and sleep.
Wow. And it's described as clear and pure as a chicken egg yolk.
Yeah, that imagery is quite striking. It suggests this inherent clarity, this potential for purity right at our core, just waiting to be accessed. Understanding this location is presented as absolutely key for the practice.
It really is remarkable, that level of detail from an ancient source. Okay, so from that central point, once the mind settles there, the inner journey really kicks off.
Right. The teaching describes the meditative path deepening. As the mind gets really still and concentrated at that center, the first thing you perceive is a clear sphere, bright, like the sun or moon.
And that's called?
The Dharma sphere that makes the human body. And crucially, this is identified as the ekanamag, or pathamamag, basically, the one path or the initial path towards nibbana. It's the starting point.
Okay, I'm from there.
As concentration deepens further, you see more spheres successively. After that first one, there's the sphere of Sīla, then the sphere of Samādhi, and then the sphere of Paññā.
Morality, concentration, wisdom spheres.
Exactly. Each one described as pure, bright like a mirror and the same size as the one before it, and it doesn't stop there. Beyond Paññā, the path leads to vimutti, liberation, and then vimutti-nirodhana, the direct knowledge and vision of that liberation.
So it's a progressive unfolding within.
Yeah.
And achieving these states,
Mm-hmm.
the teaching says it gives you access to something called the subtle human body.
The kaya manat layet. This is described as the body you experience in dreams. Apparently, its natural size is about 8 cubits tall, but in a dream, it seems the same size as your physical body.
8 cubits. That's quite large. Now, there's an amazing story connected to this, isn't there, from Wat Paknam?
Ah, yes, the dreaming while awake phenomenon. It's quite
Right.
famous. The teaching recounts how over 150 practitioners there, monks, novices, lay people, apparently achieved this state.
What could they do?
They could mentally travel, visit distant places like Doi Suthep up in Chiang Mai, or the Great Stupa down south in Nakhon Si Thammarat, Phra that Phanom Ka Weng, and they could describe details of these places instantly, without physically moving an inch.
Wow, that's extraordinary. It's presented as real evidence of what this practice can lead to.
It certainly serves as a powerful illustration within the teaching, yeah, showing these aren't just theoretical states, but experientially real possibilities.
And this journey through inner bodies, it keeps going.
Right.
It doesn't stop at the subtle human body.
No, the progression continues. After the subtle human body comes the divine body, then a subtle divine body, then the Brahma body and a subtle Brahma body, then the formless Brahma body, and finally, a subtle, formless Brahma body. It's quite a detailed inner cosmology.
Layer upon layer.
Yeah.
And the culmination of all this.
Is the Dhammakaya, the Dhamma body.
And what's that like?
It's described as looking like a beautiful Buddha image, clear as a mirror, often with a lotus bud shape on top, like a finial. And this Dhammakaya is specifically identified as the Buddharatana, the Buddha gem.
Ah, so we've arrived at the 3 jewels, the triple gem, but from a very internal experiential perspective. The Dhammakaya is the Buddharatana, the Buddha gem.
Exactly. And that's where the name Buddha is said to arise from, this inner realization. Then there's the Dhammaratana, the Dhamma gem. That's described as a clear sphere about the size of the Dhammakaya's lap. It sustains the practitioner, gives rise to Dhammo, and it's called a home for the Sangha.
Okay, and the Sangharatana, the Sangha gem.
That's described as that which protects the Dhammaratana, allowing Sangho to arise. So you have the whole triple gem realized internally.
And the teaching is quite strong on this point, isn't it? That without this internal realization, seeing these spheres, these bodies,
You're still considered a Puthujana, an ordinary person, even if you're ordained, wearing robes. Without this inner seeing, the teaching suggests people might just resort to worshiping external things, like trees or mountains, missing the actual path within. It's a real call to internal practice.
Okay, so this internal path, accessing these Dhammakayas, leads to becoming not just ordinary, but noble and Arya.
That's the transition, yes. From being a Gatravu person, someone sort of on the threshold entering the noble lineage, to becoming a true Arya, a noble one. This involves progressing through different stages of Dhammakaya.
Which correspond to the stages of enlightening.
Exactly. The Dhammakaya Sotapanna, the stream enterer, described as 5 cubits tall. Then the Dhammakaya Sakadagami, once returner, at 10 cubits. Then the Dhammakaya Anagami, non-returner. And finally, the Dhammakaya Arahant, the fully liberated one, reaching 20 cubits tall. These correspond, the teaching says, to the 8 noble persons, the 4 paths, and their fruits.
And achieving these higher Dhammakaya states is what brings true liberation. Liberation from the āsavas. We said we'd come back to those. The defilements.
Yes, the asava, the outflows or kinkers. And the teaching gives a really detailed breakdown, which is fascinating. First up is kamasava, the sensual defilements.
Okay.
It makes a distinction here. There's vatakama, that's the objective sensual stuff. Pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, the things themselves.
Right. The objects of desire.
And then there's kilasakma, that's the defiling attachment to those objects, the mental clinging, the wanting.
Okay. So the asava of kama isn't just the nice sight or the desire for it.
It's deeper. It's the pull, the taste of those experiences, the echo they leave in the mind that makes you restless, makes you keep thinking about them. The teaching says this taste is incredibly powerful.
How powerful?
Powerful enough, it says, to drive harmful actions like killing just to get a certain taste. And powerful enough that even someone ordained might give up their robes years later because that underlying taste of sensuality is still pulling them.
Wow, that's potent. Okay, what's the next asava?
Havasava, the defilement of existence or becoming. Bahava here means anything that exists for us, anything we sort of claim as mine or part of me.
Like my house, my
Yeah.
job, my reputation.
Exactly. Homes, fields, clothes, status, even just the sense of being in a certain realm, it manifests as kamapava,
Yeah.
existence tied to sensuality, rupapava, existence in the fine material realms, and arupahava, existence in the formless realms. It covers all levels of being.
So the asava of hava is the attachment to being, to having these things.
Precisely. It's that deep reluctance to let go. The teaching uses the term tanta panda sansademan, which is like a deep regret or unwillingness to part with something. A sense of, oh, but I want to keep this. Even for beings in high heavenly realms, this attachment to their state of being prevents liberation.
There's an analogy used here too, isn't there?
Yes, the pickled vegetables analogy. It's great. It says pickled things often seem more enticing than fresh ones. Something mundane, once it's flavored with this deep attachment, this bahava, becomes incredibly addictive and hard to release.
That makes sense.
Okay, third.
Dithasava, the defilement of wrong views. The teaching doesn't focus on it as much as the others here, but it's definitely included as a major obstacle.
How does it describe wrong views?
As deeply held opinions that cause conflict and harm. It mentions how people fight, even destroy each other, over differing views. It even points to conflicts between nations as stemming from this attachment to particular viewpoints. And just to be clear, we're relaying the teaching's perspective here. The point isn't political commentary, but illustrating how attachment to views, and these strongly held wrong views, can cause suffering and division.
Got it. Impartial reporting of the source. And the final, asava.
Avijjasava, the defilement of ignorance. And the teaching calls this one the most important, the root.
Ignorance of what? Fundamental ignorance. Not knowing things as they truly are. This underlies all the other asavas. It's what causes that constant doubt, that nagging feeling that things aren't quite right, that insatiable desire for things to be better. Never truly satisfied with any sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch.
Like a fundamental dissatisfaction.
Exactly. The teaching uses the image of an egg sac. This ignorance envelops beings, preventing them from breaking free from the cycle of birth and death. Only a fully liberated Arahant, it says, is truly free from avijja, from this fundamental ignorance.
So overcoming these four asavas through developing Sīla, Samādhi, and Paññā via the Dhammakaya path is liberation.
That's the path laid out in this teaching, yes.
And the teaching ends with a real sense of urgency, doesn't it?
It does, of a very strong exhortation. Tata apamadena sampaditaba, which means,
roughly, in this matter, you should not be negligent. Don't delay.
right, life passes quickly. Time, youth, they slip away. Death doesn't wait.
There's a Pali verse quoted, too, to drive this home.
Yes. Accenta kalat tarayanti ratio, vayaguhan, jahanti, eta vayamara marampekmano kusalani kayerata sukhabahani.
Can you translate that for us?
It means something like, time passes, nights fly by, the stages of life successively leave us behind. Seeing this fear associated with death, one should perform wholesome deeds that bring true happiness.
So the practical takeaway is act now. Cultivate merit, do good.
That's the strong advice. True happiness comes from understanding these truths and acting on them, making merit, developing wholesome qualities. The teaching even mentions the people who traveled far to make offerings they understood time was precious.
It brings it back to tangible action based on this deep internal understanding.
Exactly.
So here's something to leave you with. This teaching presents a very specific, very internal path to liberation. If true understanding, real freedom from suffering, is found by looking within to these precise spheres, these subtle bodies culminating in the Dhammakaya, well, does that change how you think about where to look for answers for genuine happiness in your own life?